This episode is sponsored by CuriosityStream and Nebula. Get both for just $15 a year. Everyone has their own dessert preferences. Some like ice cream, some prefer cheesecake, others opt for churros. To each their own. But let's make one thing clear. Although there are categories of desserts, say cakes versus pies versus ice cream, of which each natural person is entitled to enjoy more or less than any other, within each category, there are objectively more and less successful manifestations of that ideal. In other words, whatever form, fit, and function you personally demand from your sweets, I'm here to show you that within the category of cakes, cupcakes are simply, definitively, and unarguably inferior. Ask 100 college-educated adults for their favorite dessert, and exactly 0 will say cupcakes. Is this merely a crazy culinary coincidence? Of course not. The cupcake is no one's favorite because its very existence is a compromise. Cake is too unhealthy, we're to believe, while cupcakes are a smaller, more reasonable balance of calories and taste. In reality, cupcakes are the worst of both worlds, neither particularly healthy nor very good, guaranteed to disappoint. Their first sin is that of rigid proportions. You can cut or scoop as much or as little cake or ice cream as you want, but cupcakes arrive as a unit. They're always too small or too big, and if you want just a little bit more, you have no choice but to take a whole nother cupcake. Their second failure is a poor cake-to-icing ratio. The superior shape of cake guarantees each slice no fewer than 2 sides of frosting. Compare that to the regrettable experience of eating a cupcake. At best, you might manage a few messy bites of both cake and icing, one for the roof of your mouth and the other for the bottom. More likely, you're forced to eat a mouthful of icing followed by a mouthful of cake. Then, after diligently trying to bite equal parts of both, you're rewarded at the bottom with a rough hellscape of little leftover bits of lone cake crumbs. Thanks a lot. With cake, you can use a fork and a knife to redistribute the icing, whereas cupcakes offer no such convenience, and are therefore far messier. Some argue that the best way to eat a cupcake is to remove its cup, cut it in half, and place the bottom half on top of the icing, forming a sandwich. Fine, I say, but if you have to so fundamentally alter its basic form, well, that admits of a real flaw in its design. Third, cupcakes are overpriced. Cake is made of flour and water, and yet somehow when it's miniaturized, our backward society succumbs to its supposed cuteness and is suddenly willing to pay a much higher price. Seriously, a small to moderate-sized pile of sugar butter can command a $4, $5, even $6 price tag. It's madness. So how do I explain the hype? The crazed obsession that dominates middle-class America? In a word, aesthetics. I'll give cupcakes one thing. They look good. I say let them live on the cover of food magazines. But double as real, actual food that enters human mouths, they most definitely should not. Finally, cupcakes lack sophistication. No matter how hard they insecurely dress themselves up in the dessert equivalent of an oversized tuxedo, with a giant flower, piece of fruit, or bow on top, and try to masquerade at weddings, they just can't pull it off. You just can't help but pity them. You don't belong at an official ceremony, you belong at a 6-year-old's birthday party, and only then because dumb kids don't know any better. Yeah, I can already hear you falling into the classic no true cupcake fallacy. I say cupcakes are messy, or expensive, or proportioned poorly, and you say, you probably just haven't had any good cupcakes. Well, I assure you, I've had far too many cupcakes, from the homemade to the mortgage your home kind, and I can honestly say that, sure, I've had a couple alright ones. If I were left alone on an island, I'd probably eat a cupcake. After I've exhausted all other swallowable objects, of course. Cupcakes are still a sugary dessert, but my point is, in a world of abundant confectionery delights, why settle for anything but the best? Do yourself a favor and spend those calories on a churro or just a plain old slice of cake instead. You're welcome. I'm happy to report that while CuriosityStream distributes exactly zero cupcake propaganda, there are great documentaries on how food is made, along with thousands of other science, history, and technology topics. For just $15 a year, about the price of one pretentious cupcake, you also get access to Nebula, where you can watch these videos 1 week early, without any ads, and watch other exclusive and bonus content from your favorite channels. Sign up with the link in the description and you'll get an email with access to Nebula.